Budro, welcome to the Keep Austin Film Podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know that you're just coming in from New Mexico, is that right?
Yeah, we had a film festival in New Mexico. Actually, the last 2 weekends in New Mexico. My film played in Tucumcari 2 weeks ago, and then this past weekend it played in Gallup.
Nice.
So I'm actually headed to Nashville right after this to go shoot some interviews for my second documentary that's currently in post-production. Wow. So doing a quick pickup shot.
Okay. Right on. That's awesome. So maybe you could just introduce yourself to the audience real fast and just kind of tell them who you are.
Sure. My name is Budro Partida. I'm the owner and founder of Penny Rock Productions. I've been in Austin since the late 90s, and I've been a part of media and film and TV for the last, almost 30 years now. 30
years. Have all 30 of those years been here in Austin?
No, I actually worked in South Texas for a little bit. I started off in radio and television. I worked in TV. My background is TV production, and I was in TV for almost 27 years. But in working in TV, I also worked with different mass media. So, music videos and film, short film for a long time, and then eventually into, feature film, horror stuff, documentary, and just I do a lot of commercial content as well. So, but really what I love doing is music videos and film.
How did you start working with music videos? Have you been doing that since you started with production? Is that something that's new?
Yeah, actually, back in the late 90s, I was really highly influenced. I love the genre and the work of music videos and what they do and kind of like how they market a band, And my background is marketing, advertising. So I love working in the music video space just because I love working with independent local bands. A majority of the bands that I work with, 95% of them are independent. They're not backed by a label. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And I just, I love working in the films, world of film and also the world of music. And music videos kind of obviously combine those two. And to me, music videos are essentially short films, but your lead actors, they don't have to memorize lines. They just have their lyrics down.
Yeah.
And so, and they typically take only a couple days to shoot. And because my background is TV, I learned how to shoot quickly, edit quickly, and, turn around quickly, which is something that I try to offer the bands that I work with. And in learning, all those editing skills, and I learned how to turn around music videos quickly so that they don't have to spend millions of dollars, to make a good-looking product. And that's what I try to offer bands is make them a good-looking product for a reasonable budget. In fact, my company motto is national look on a local budget. And so I really push that. I really strive to give artists of all scales, of all genres, that opportunity to make a really cool marketing piece for their band that they're proud of.
So I know that I worked in music videos for a little bit as well back in Los Angeles, and I was kind of on the tail end of the MTV days. Mm-hmm. And so people were not really sure where music videos were going to go, what they're going to do with them. What is kind of the distribution idea for music videos today?
Well, obviously, I think 99.99% of it is online, is on YouTube and or Vimeo of some kind. But really the idea is it's a marketing tool. Mm-hmm. A lot of the bands that I work with, they want them because they want them for their EPK. They want them to, yes, go viral and make a cool looking video. Okay.
Is it 4th of July yet? It's just May, folks.
All right.
We got fireworks coming from the neighbors.
Nice. But yeah, music videos are essentially a marketing tool for the bands. And so, they put them in their EPKs. They like for the music videos to share amongst their fans and their followers. And I'm pretty proud of almost every single music video I make. And so I make it a point to make something really cool to put my name on, and the majority of the music videos I like working, obviously they have a performance, most of them have performance, but a lot of them have, narratives. And so that's why I like incorporating that music video aspect into part of my production company. It's one of the silos that my production company does. And so, but, in the last few years, the last 5, 6, 7 years, Penny Rock has really come to be as one of kind of like a, one of the good options to work with in the Austin area for for bands and music videos.
So you said your production company is called Penny Rock, right?
Yeah.
Where'd that name come from?
Man, my daughter was born about 13 years ago. And so at the time I was just working out of a spare bedroom in my house, for my production company. I had a normal day job in TV, but for extra stuff on the side, that's what I was doing. And so I said, I need a name for my company. And so my wife, of course, said, well, what about Penny? That's our daughter's name. And I was like, yeah, but I need to add something to it. Like, I don't know, rock, Penny Rock, And she was like, yeah, go for it. And I bought the website that night and have had it ever since. And so, it's an LLC that, it's an actual functioning business in Texas. And so, yeah, it's my full-time job for a good couple of years now.
All right, you just tackled the next question I was going to ask you, because I know that so many people, especially in Austin, have film as a side hustle or a job that they would like to have, but it's not their full-time gig. But you've been working full-time in production with Penny Rock.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I actually left a great, comfortable, very well-placed job in the corporate world. But man, I was done with it. And so I was like, I'd hate to turn 60, 65, 70 years old and not be able to say at least that I tried doing it. And so, I saved up some money over the span of a couple of years. I started buying equipment here and there, and eventually, pulled the trigger and handed in my notice to my boss and said, it's time. And so yeah, I've been doing that full time for a couple of years now.
Excellent, man. So you're living the dream. You're getting to work full-time, doing what you love with Penny Rock. And I want to go back to music videos for just a second, because you're working with a band that I'm familiar with called The Immortals. Could you tell me a little bit about how you met them?
Yeah, The Immortals. I love The Immortals. A couple years ago, I met Sarah Webb at a horror convention. And at the time, I had actually booked her for a short film that I was working on, a short zombie film. And, we got the shoot booked, we had all the extras and makeup booked, and then the pandemic hit, and we literally got shut down that weekend. So that was put on hold. But she mentioned, hey, I also have this band, it's called The Immortals. I play Scara, Damsel of the Doom, and I was like, ooh, I love this, because my background is horror film. And it's no secret that I love the Misfits. So it's like horror, punk, I love it. Tell me more. And so I got to meet Corey Trahan, who's also in the band, John Bach and Joshua Fontenot, and of course they all have stage names and stuff, and they put on this really great kind of campy horror show for people, and I immediately was attracted to them and their entire group over at Bat City Scaregrounds. So I loved that experience, and so we cranked out their first music video back in 2019, I think it was. It was called It's Not a God, It's a Gourd, and I've been making their music videos ever since. And so I think we just finished the fourth one, the fourth installment with with the Immortals. It's called Spooky Shit. Nice. And it's a great little kind of campy vibe about Sarah and how she loves all the spooky vibe stuff. And I love working with those guys because they're creatives. They listen, we bounce ideas off each other, and Corey has become one of my best friends in the film world, not only in the film world, but personally. And so, he and I work together quite frequently on each other's projects. And so the Immortals are definitely, one of my favorites.
You mentioned Corey is in the band,
Yeah.
and I know that Corey is also a partner of yours with the Central Texas Directors Network. Is that right?
Yes. So Corey and I, a couple years ago, we got together and we had coffee, and we were kind of talking about these certain problems that, as directors that we have and that we encounter. And so we kind of like said, well, man, we should have a group where we can kind of talk and bounce ideas off each other kind of thing. And so very quickly that night, he bought the website, the URL, and right away we started putting together a couple of people to say, hey, we're forming this network, this directors network, so we can kind of have in-person socials where we can have an open forum of discussion and solve each other's problems and figure out issues, and within the safety of a closed room where we can talk about what are the things that are affecting us directors. It's geared specifically to directors, but it's something we've been doing for a couple of years now, and it's kind of really grown. We have 100 50 plus members now, and we meet quarterly to, we have guest speakers, we have, questions and that are answered, and we just have just a good time. They're nice party atmosphere just to hang out as directors.
So is it easy to get in? Do you have to have any credentials to get in? Is it for anybody? Do you have to be a director?
I mean, it is specifically geared towards directors, and our only criteria is that you have to have some kind of award-winning short or have produced a feature at some point.
Gotcha.
Obviously we want to create some kind of exclusivity, but I'm sure we'll have the website up, but yeah, Central Texas Directors Network, it's a great asset and it's a great thing for our group here in Central Texas, and it's a lot of fun too.
Cool. So if people want to be a part of this group and they're directors who've met the criteria that you're talking about, they just go to the website, sign up, email. How do they get involved?
Just go to the website, you sign up, and you're automatically in. It's free. That's the best part, is that it's free, and you'll get notified when we have these socials, and on top of that, we have a group chat that everybody joins, and we actually ask each other questions and like, hey, does anybody have a location for this, or has anybody dealt with this studio, or has anybody figured out distribution with this company? A lot of inside stuff that really helps out filmmakers. At our last meeting not too long ago, we had an entertainment lawyer come in, one of Corey's entertainment lawyers, and he answered a lot of questions to our group of directors, really important, vital stuff. So it's a pretty valuable resource where directors can share resources and figure out issues and find out some good info.
So for anybody who doesn't know Corey, maybe you could tell us a little bit about him and how y'all started working together.
Corey Trahan is also an Austin filmmaker. He's also a musician. He actually scored my film Bloody and Bruised. He does a lot of horror films. His specialty is horror film, and so he and I work a lot, quite frequently, along with Sarah and a couple other projects. He's helped me out on various commercial and film projects, and we're one of those, like, we kind of get it. We're in around the same age. We have the same background. We love a lot of the same films, so we kind of really connected really well. And so Corey Trahan is one of those guys that he's very resourceful, and plus he's very knowledgeable, and he's one of the smartest guys I know. The guy's an actual physicist. He's not only a filmmaker and a musician, he's also a legit scientist. So,
He can legitimately tell people once that guy's is a rocket science.
Yeah, he actually knows quantum physics.
Yeah.
And actually his next film is a film that he's been working on for years now, that I'm going to help partner with. It's a film called Demon Code, and it actually part of it is a realm of, like, quantum physics. It's a horror sci-fi deal, kind of Hellraiser meets The Matrix kind of deal. So that's currently in pre-production and scheduled for production next year.
That sounds exciting. So I know that in that answer you mentioned Bloody and Bruised. What is that?
Bloody and Bruised, the untold story of the back room. It is a feature film that I produced and directed, along with a core team of producers, Ray Segern, John Robert Jew, Adam Salinas, Tamara Moore, David Moskowitz. And so we all kind of led this team, or I led the team, into directing and producing this documentary, this gargantuan, epic music documentary about the back room, which was a music venue that was on the east side of Austin. It was kind of primarily known for hard rock and heavy metal, but it was around for 30 plus years. And so the film kind of explores, it's like a little history lesson, a little love letter to this music venue. And, it took us 4.5 years to produce from start to finish. It took over my life for 4.5 years, amongst other projects that were going on. But last year we finished it, and it's been on early last year, in early 2024. And it's been in the film festival circuit ever since August.
How did you decide that this venue, the back room, is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. How did you decide that this is the one? This is the documentary we're spent 4 years making?
Man, in the Austin music scene, there's always documentaries, and people are always highlighting the downtown clubs, the Antones, all these big, huge, the Saxon Pub, which actually is another film that I helped work on. But like all these clubs that are really well known for rock and blues. And, the back room was kind of like the redheaded stepchild on the east side that not a lot of people talked about. and it definitely wasn't like in the main media scene at all. So I was a part of that. I met I want to say it's the very first bar / music venue I went to in Austin when I first moved to Austin. So it meant a lot to me. I met a lot of people there, and really that's what the film is about. The film, yes, it's about a physical building and a lot of the stuff that happened there, but really the film is about a community and a family that it formed over decades.
Wow. I get the feeling that a lot of people who've been in Austin for a while would really dig that, because it sounds to me kind of like a time capsule of what Austin used to be. Not to be like piling on, oh, Austin's changed, like we know, But I'm curious, I can't really think of a place that exists right now that has that same kind of energy that you're describing.
Right. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to nail down. We asked a lot of the people in the film that we interviewed, could the back room be around today, or did it have its time and place? And half the people are saying, yeah, we think it could be around today. But a majority of the people are saying, well, no, we think it had its time and place. There's just stuff that you can't get away with now. By the way, we're so happy that we didn't have cell phones back then, So it's definitely, it was a certain time and era. And, I think the film does a good job of exploring that and telling not only people's stories, but how they all interacted with each other, and how, a lot of the bands that came out of the back room, whether they were national headliners or local, they influenced a lot of musicians and artists around today, So I think that's why it's important.
I love that, man. So is that the film that you have in festivals right now?
It is.
Okay. So you're touring with that, and you were just showing that in New Mexico?
Correct.
Okay. How's that going?
We've been doing fairly well, man. We've been capturing quite a lot of Best Documentary Awards and Best Editing, all the technical awards as well, and also Audience Choice Awards. We've won a multiple of those, and which to me really says something, because the audience themselves are the ones that are saying, hey, this movie is pretty cool. And so, the awards are great, obviously, but the more eyeballs we can get on the film, the better, because we have our challenge is that we only have one calendar year to show the film in the festival circuit, because we have copyrighted music in it, and that's the deal that we made with all the record labels. And so come August, our festival license is up, and right now we have a sales agent that is in the middle of trying to acquire all the rights for distribution. All
right, so you mentioned awards, and I read prepping for this talk we're going to have that you have an Emmy. Is that right?
I do. Yeah, I have an Emmy for, it's a regional Emmy, but still it's an Emmy. And I helped co-create a television series that I produced and edited. It was an entertainment show called Austin After Hours that ended up getting syndicated. And so, and it was like one of these interview celebrity chefs and actors and movers and shakers and social media influencers and radio people and stuff. And it was really fun to do. It lasted about 3 or 4 years, and I think we won an Emmy for the second season, I believe. And then we got nominated again for the third season, but we didn't win that one. But yeah, it's a kind of a cool little sales tool where, I actually have it there sitting on my in my office on my record player, next to my record player. Oh, yeah. And so people come in and they go, is that an Emmy?
Yeah, I'd have it on my sink right near the mirror so every morning.
But it's pretty cool to put that on your name. It's on my name for the rest of my life, so that's pretty neat.
So is there anywhere, if I wanted to catch Austin After Dark, is it live anywhere?
No, it's called Austin After Hours.
Oh, my bad.
And then so I think there might be some episodes on YouTube, up on YouTube, that are still left over from like those days. So that's really the only place. It's not an active syndication anymore. Okay. So, but I think there's some reruns on YouTube.
That'd be cool. I'm feeling really nostalgic lately because I grew up in Dallas and I would come to Austin throughout the years, and then I moved away to LA and I would only come back for South by. Mm-hmm. So I've seen Austin change like year by year in little doses. So I always think it'd be kind of cool to have some sort of, Austin throughout time kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to talk, speaking of, Austin and changing and everything like that, we've got a lot going on with tax incentives. We've got studios coming in, and you're somebody who works full-time in production. What do these changes mean for you? Do you have any kind of like hopes, expectations? Are you indifferent?
Well, I can definitely say that when I moved here in the late 90s, the film scene was definitely exploding. And a lot of that was due to Robert Rodriguez and Richard Linklater, you know, and that really contributed a lot to Austin being known as kind of like the third coast, you know, which was the big kind of magic term back then. And ever since then, you know, the scene has definitely changed. And I think as far as monetarily, because now with inflation, Austin is very much more expensive than it was obviously 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's very difficult for somebody to come out here or come to town and try to make a sustainable living. And this is not just for filmmakers, but also for musicians, for any kind of artists. You know, it's very difficult, and it's definitely a challenge. But the Austin film scene itself hasn't changed, because the ones that are passionate about it, they find a way to make it happen. And so I'm very fortunate that, you know, Penny Rock is sustainable, that I can actually make a living off of it. But, you know, I know those people that work the day jobs in something that's not film related or TV related or media related, or the ones that do, sometimes they're, you know, they're very entry level, or it's very not at the top of, they're not the director, obviously they're just working on the crew. So, but those are the people that, you know, they work the daily grind so that they can do film at night, or they can be a weekend warrior. And those are the ones that are really still around and have always been around. And I think those are the movers and shakers that, you know, I very much came up through that system of working my way up through as a TV editor, and then eventually, you know, a DP and stuff like that, and eventually to working on various film projects. And, you know, I'm very comfortable in the Austin market because I've been here for a long time, you know, and not a lot of other people can say that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, yeah, it's definitely changed. And, you know, is it for the better? I think the people are more driven. The people are more driven and definitely want to make a name for themselves. It's a very important thing because, you know, this market is also very oversaturated. And I think that's the challenge too. Anybody buys a laptop or a DSLR and all of a sudden, hey, I'm a filmmaker, you know, like, okay, yeah, but like, do you know the actual, you know, terminology? Do you know actually how the camera works? Right. Do you know what a white balance is? You know, that's, you know, that's still very much a thing to look out for. But, you know, the people that are driven, the people that really want it, the people that are hungry, those people are still around. And those are the people that I tend to work with a lot.
So let's say you're somebody who's new to Austin, you're somebody with a little bit of experience, but you're trying to get into the film scene here. Like, what would you say to those folks? Like, what would you recommend?
Go to film festivals. Go to as many networking events. Join as many Facebook groups as you can. Get your name out there. And if it takes, you know, if it takes working for little to nothing, if you're hungry enough, then you will do it. Because that's how you make your name known. You know, I pride myself on trying to teach and mentor up and coming filmmakers, crew members, regardless of where they come from or their background, because, you know, I've been there. I've been in those shoes. I've worked my way up there. So I know how hard it is, and it's even harder now just because of the oversaturation. So I love it when crew members that I introduce crew members to each other on a new set, and they go off and they work on another project, you know, and I love it when that happens. You know, I love to facilitate those relationships. So, you know, definitely the more people you meet like that, crew members talk, directors talk, filmmakers talk, they talk to each other and they say, hey, did you see that one guy or that one girl that, you know, they were pretty, like, you know, I think they could get this, you know, they can get shit done, you know? And so it's to your advantage to go to as many events as possible, to go to as many film events, social networks, like the Directors Network, you know, anything and everything that you can to just make a name for yourself, because at some point people will notice. Mm-hmm.
They certainly will. I mean, Austin, from my experience, is a really small community. Mm-hmm. And so, on the one hand, that's really great if you make a name for yourself early. Could also be a problematic if you're hard to work with. You know, I just
Absolutely.
noticed that I've worked on one feature film since I've been out here, and I've been seeing that crew all over there. It just keeps showing up in the same places over and over and over again, which I think is really interesting. Now, you told me that you work in narrative, typically in horror, right? I watched one of your most recent ones, which was Beware.
Yes, beware.
Yes. Great. I loved it. And I was watching a couple of your other shorts, and I noticed that you had some recurring cast. Are those your children?
I do have my kids in a couple of some of my shorts, especially in some of the horror stuff that I do. And, you know, my kids, you know, with growing up with a father that works in production, you know, they're not like other typical kids that, you know, they're not really scared of like horror films, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
But, you know, they know who Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers are, and they don't, you know, they don't balk at that. And so they kind of see how the sausage is made,
Yeah.
you know, so they kind of think it's cool, you know, like my daughter goes to school and she, you know, she plays the videos online for her friends and they're like, oh my God, you're in that. Like, she's like, yeah, man, you know, that's me, you know? So I kind of dig that vibe. And so, yeah, my kids being a part of it and, you know, and they're very artistic kids now. They're older. My daughter, she's an amazing painter. And my son plays bass. And so, you know, they're very creative. And that's what I really want to instill in them is creativity.
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought that they might be your kids because they had been recurring in these different horror films you've made. And I just watched an interview with Robert Rodriguez where he was talking about being resourceful. And it seems like maybe that's what you were doing in that situation. Or maybe you just wanted to, you know, introduce your kids into the craft. But these are horror films that they're working in. What do you think about the scene here in Austin? Has it got a good horror scene?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of horror filmmakers here that are kind of keeping that genre alive. You know, I think a lot of the horror filmmakers here have explored, you know, especially with technology that's available now, they've explored the CGI realm, they've explored the practical realm, and they're kind of getting the best of both worlds now with all the technology that we have, you know. So, you know, I love that there's a lot of old school films, old throwbacks to the 80s. Butcher's Bluff, which is, you know, William Instone's film that's been doing really great, especially on streaming. We talked about Corey Trahan. You know, he's got multiple horror features that are out right now. You know, there's Ethereal Horror Film Fest, you know, Elizabeth Lloyd, that she's working on that. Justin, who works at ATX Shore Film Festival, you know, he just launched the Austin Horror Film Festival. So, you know, it's great seeing all this stuff that Austin people are making because they're like, you know what, you know, we don't. You go to an average film festival, there's maybe a horror category that's that big, but when you see how many films are being generated out of Central Texas that are horror related, it's astounding and it's great. And I don't get to do a lot of horror narrative anymore that much because I've been working mainly in documentary. But I love making music videos that are horror related. So I've been doing that a lot to kind of scratch that itch.
You mentioned a couple of festivals there, and I saw that you got nominated for Best Male Filmmaker of the Year from what is the film festival?
Revolution.
Revolution Film
Yeah,
Fest.
actually I won that. Actually, I didn't just get nominated, I won.
You won with a film?
I won Male Filmmaker of the Year and also won Best Documentary with and a couple of other ones too. But like, yeah, man, Revolution was really cool this year. It was, you know, I definitely wasn't expecting that. I saw that nomination. I was like, wow, well, cool, this is neat. And then I found out, like, yeah, hey, you actually won. Like, oh, cool, awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we got that film festival. You mentioned, you know, the short film festival. Do you think there's any like fests not to miss here in Austin? Is there just like the ones that are maybe a little bit better than the others? Do you have any recommendations for filmmakers here in Austin?
I mean, one of my favorites is Austin Revolution. You know, it really celebrates the independent filmmaker in Central Texas. Jim and everybody that works over there, Lish and Jim's wife. You know, they've been doing it for a while. I think now 13 years was the last one. The next one 14. I think that's going to be the last one that they hold. You know, it's a great opportunity to network and you see some really great content there. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a couple of other Austin ones. You know, the Spotlight, Ethereal. I cannot suggest Ethereal like enough, because Elizabeth does a great job of curating multiple films of multiple horror genres. You know, so she's been a great champion of the horror scene as well. And again, Justin over at ATX, you know, especially now that he's opened up that Austin Horror Film Festival, you know, he put on an amazing festival this past year. Lots of great shorts, lots of great features. The awards themselves are really cool. You know, it's a great scene, man. So I would definitely like look into those festivals for sure.
So that sounds like a great list of film festivals. So if you're a filmmaker in here in Austin, make sure to look those up, because he's right. Those are some really great resources, and if you get in, that's going to be huge. So, you know, I know that you've got this film in the festival circuit right now, and it's doing well. What's next?
Currently, I'm in post-production of my second music documentary. It's called I Took the Road Less Traveled, and it's about a Spanish artist named Bull Diego, and he is a rock and roller. He grew up in Spain listening to Chuck Berry and Elvis, and he worships Elvis, you know, and all these old 50s and 60s American rock and roll bands in Spain. And it influenced him so much that he decided to move to the United States, pursue the American dream. And so that's what we did, is that we followed him around the country, all over the U.S., and we actually went to Spain to shoot some of his background and where he grew up. But we followed him around on tour, and for about almost a year and a half. And that film is currently in post-production. We're about halfway done with that. And so we're expecting that to be done later this year. And then this summer, I'm starting a third music documentary, which I can't really talk too much about, but if you're big in the Austin music scene, you should definitely stay tuned to that, because especially if you're in the metal world. So, but more on that coming soon.
So it's in post-production. I think a lot of filmmakers that there want to know, and if you don't want to tell us, it's fine, but if you got anything juicy about how do you raise money for something like that?
The world of documentary is very weird, because because really you can actually go and shoot a documentary for very little to no cost. And really it's amount of, what the biggest commodity is your time, you know. As long as you have the gear, you know, and you're willing to sacrifice your time to go shoot, you know, you can shoot, keep doing it. Where you need money is in post-production, when it comes to, you know, mastering and then licensing. So really that's where the money comes from. A lot of times, you know, in the world of documentary, the realm of investors are usually kind of like the good way to go. And that's because usually, depending on your subject, you have a certain field of investors that are sometimes really willing to give money to that and support that idea. And whether we're a part of it or not, you know, they like the idea of what your film is representing or going to be displaying. And if they're really big supporters on that, you know, they just want to see the story told. And so investors will usually help kind of back that. But also, depending on whatever the subject of the documentary is, you might actually have a social media following, like with The Backroom. You know, yes, we did have a handful of executive producers, but the general public was really helpful, and we didn't actually do an outright crowdfunding. You know, people were just, hey man, here's $20. Hey, here's $1,000, you know, because they just wanted to see the story told. So really it depends on your subject matter and how you curate that towards investors and the public.
Love it. Okay, so have you seen any good local films lately? Is there like one that stands out in your mind that you would like to shout out?
Oh man, what's a good one? I gotta, like, the top of mind right now that I really gotta say is obviously Corey's, you know, not to play favorites to Corey, and I know I talked about him a lot today, but you know, Damsel of the Doom, that feature that he made last was written by Sarah Webb as Scara. You know, it's been doing really well, and so he's getting ready to work on distribution for that. So definitely, I think, check out Damsel of the Doom if you get a chance. It's currently in the circuit. And then plus Corey also recently released his second feature, which was called The Black Quarry, which I actually helped out on that. I was production manager on that. That was a great film that we worked on a couple years ago. Recently went on Blu-ray, and it's out on streaming services right now.
Corey or Corey?
Corey. No, oh, I'm sorry. No. Well, the movie is called The Black Quarry.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the movie is called The Black Quarry.
He made it about himself.
So, like, local horror is done well. And also, I got to give a shout out to, if you follow the horror scene here, Butcher's Bluff is amazing. Throwback to 80s, kind of gore kind of stuff with a Hogman character. I
just saw that one of the streaming services, which will not be named, edited the gore out of it.
Yeah, they did. That was kind of a weird kind of thing that happened, especially to a filmmaker. That's just something you never want to see. But
right. So if you see it and it's not that gory, watch it again on a different streaming platform.
Or order the DVD.
Yeah, there you go.
Order the DVD. But then also, I got to give a shout out to Michael Sharon, because that guy, anything that guy makes, the comedy is great. Time Capsule. I mean, right now he's working on what's the one with the pot and the love.
Yeah, it's hard not to be romantic.
Yes, that one. So I actually donated that because I was like, man, I really dig this story, and Michael's a great comedy filmmaker, and so Eric Arneen, who's in that too, so they've got a great team, and Lish, they always put together some really good stuff. So like, I definitely suggest you go watch this stuff. Leverage, if you haven't seen Leverage, go check that out. I just recently saw that. So that's definitely what I have on top of mind for now.
Totally. Quick plug, by the way, there's probably, by the time this comes out, a couple days left on that campaign for the time travel film. So make sure you look that up. It's hard not to be romantic about time travel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure he'll appreciate you plugging that one. So is there anything else that you think the audience should know about you, about Penny Rock, that we haven't really covered yet? Is there anything that you want to tell Austin filmmakers?
As far as telling Austin filmmakers is, never stop learning. That's something I teach, I speak a lot with schools and students and film students and media students, and they always ask me for a piece of advice, and I go, never stop learning, because the minute you get comfortable, you get stale, and the minute you get stale, you get overlooked. So that's definitely one piece of advice that I would give. And then secondly is trust. This industry is built on trust. Crew members have to learn to trust you. If you want to be a director, you have to have the ability to have people trust you. You have to also have to be the ability to be a leader. You have to be able to be a champion at 3 a.m. and coach them and keep their energy up. And you have to be able to tell them, I need you to do this for me. I need you to do this for me. And it's all based on trust. So, definitely don't burn your bridges. Be kind and speak well to each other, because you never know who's going to be on your crew that's, going to possibly be the next big thing, Yep. And because, it can happen. And so. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely true in the film industry. It's even more true in Austin, I think, Burning bridges is, a real no-no out here because it's such a small community. And, this is a question I wanted to ask you before, and I just want to ask it before we're done. Because I really want to get to the bottom of this. Are these Bastrop Studios ever going to happen?
I mean, that's the plan. I saw that it got pushed again, but now we're hearing 2026, end of 2026. That's the big reveal, supposedly. So possibly, I hope so. I hope it happens. They're really trying to bring a lot of jobs out there, which will kind of help the entire community as a whole, film community as a whole. Plus, tax incentives and stuff, because, tax incentives in Texas aren't the greatest, especially when you compare them to Kentucky, New Mexico, other states. But at least there's something, and then they just recently passed that law, the McConaughey Act kind of deal. So if it can generate some more buzz in the film industry and help the local economy even better. So I'm all about it.
Right. Yeah, because my understanding is like the last big production out here was probably Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, that's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and that left right before I got here to Georgia from what I understand, tax incentive purposes. You know,
Yeah,
so
there have been a couple of HBO shows that have been shot here, Love and Death, and what's the other one? The Replacements. Man, I can't remember the other one. But like, there have been multiple HBO shows that have. So you know, they're trying to take advantage of the Central Texas area as well, and bringing those jobs here. And so you know, if that can help out, you know, some of the film kids. And keep them from going to California or LA or New York or whatever, and kind of keep all that labor local. And then, you know, we all make a little bit of money. We all make a little bit of creative, you know, outlets, and make some cool looking shit, you know. So and be a part of something bigger, you know. So I hope it happens, you know, especially with the Bastrop Studios, you know. You know, there's a lot of great studio spaces in Austin to explore, and you know, you don't have to have $1 million budget. You know, you can start off, you know, in a couple hundreds and thousands, and so it's all a matter of, again, networking, socializing, and putting your name out there so that, hey, who do we know that has a studio? You know, and so yeah.
I love it. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, Austin has got something really special. You know, when I first moved here about 4 years ago from LA, I kind of had this feeling like Austin was pretending. You know, and I had this like LA is still king kind of mindset. But as I've lived here and gotten to know the filmmakers and gotten to know the talent, seeing the kind of quality material coming out of the short film showcase, you know, I realized that Austin's like this pool of incredible talent. And it's got this really strong community. And I think it's something that's why I started this podcast, is to try to help in any way I can to speed the process along, because I think that, you know, Austin is the place to be, you know? And
and I think, you know, the talent is here, the technology is here, you know, as long as we can make it affordable for both to meet, you know, and so that we can keep the creative people creating. And I think that's, as long as we can afford that, then, you know, musicians, filmmakers, artists, painters, you know, the whole creative community here, it's a great scene when it all works, you know, and so I'm proud to be a part of it. And I, you know, like I said, I've been in this market for a long time, and I really pride myself on being, you know, definitely one of the production companies that people see as like, hey, you should go talk to that guy, because, you know, awards are great, you know, they're great sales tools, and they're great to put up on the shelf. But for me, when somebody comes up and says, you know, hey, are you the guy that made Bloody and Bruised? Man, I really loved that film, you know, that speaks volumes to me.
Do you have any festival dates for Bloody and Bruised that people might want to know about?
If you're watching this and it's before May 17th, we have one last Austin screening that I know of. It's at the Austin International Film Festival, happening Saturday, May 17th. So, you know, get your tickets there at austininternationalfilmfestival.com. It's probably one of our last Austin screenings. But then we go back out on the road. We're going to be hitting Dallas, Salt Lake City, Utah, a couple of spots in Michigan. Hopefully we go back to New Mexico for Albuquerque. And then plus we got a couple more that are still waiting to hear back from.
It's so cool. I love it, man. So if folks at home want to follow you and your work and see these new projects you mentioned when they come out, how would they go about doing that?
You can find me on the socials at Budro Partida. You can also check out my website, pennyrockproductions.com, for all my music videos and short films and stuff like that. And for anything Bloody and Bruised related, bloodyandbruised.com.
Awesome. Well, Budro, I just want to say thanks so much for coming out, being guest on episode number 2. And folks at home, if you like this conversation, you know, like and subscribe, do all that stuff. It helps the pod. And make sure you go check out his websites, follow him. He's a great guy. His work is incredible. He's Filmmaker Year 2025. Don't forget it. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.